So, apologies to Knicks fans, because we're going to talk about the Andrea Bargnani trade. Way back after the Knicks 2013 season, which was very successful, as we may remember. 54 wins, shooting a whole bunch of threes, all that stuff. That offseason, they trade fan favorite Steve Novak, a bunch of stuff, but more importantly, a 2016 first-round pick to the Raptors for Bargnani. And that draft pick would later be the 9th pick in the 2016 draft. The Raptors used it for Jakob Poeltl. Sabonis was 2 picks after that, so there's a chance the Knicks could have selected Sabonis. There's a chance they could have picked whoever. They could have picked Thon Maker. They could have picked Denzel Valentine. There's a chance the Knicks wouldn't have selected a significant player with this. But there's also a chance they would have picked Sabonis. The other thing is they could have traded that pick somewhere else. I mean, if they were willing to move it for Bargnani, then perhaps they would have traded it for insert any player who was traded between the years of 2014 and 2016. Now, one thing I will say is there's a chance the Knicks might have saved themselves a year or two with money from this trade, because I don't really remember the lengths of Camby and Novak's contracts. They combined for about $9 million, but they might have been locked into those two for a little longer than they'd like to have been. As far as why they got themselves into those situations, that could be a different conversation and all that, but you know, I guess if you wanted to try hard enough to defend the Knicks for this move. And looking at Bargnani's output with the Knicks, it's tough to not look at this trade negatively. Not only that, though, it's like, well, he wasn't even killing it when they traded for him. Like the year beforehand, really the 2 years beforehand, he played a combined 66 games for the Raptors. And the year before they traded for him, he averaged 13 a game on bad efficiency. And it was just like, this is who you're trading this first round pick for? I mean, I could have understood it a little bit more if Bargnani was healthy and scoring 17 a game and was a matchup nightmare for teams because he was a big who could shoot and go off the dribble and stuff. But he wasn't. He was just kind of this tall dude who you thought could do a lot of stuff, but he couldn't. Now, if you want to defend Bargnani, the case to be made is he came around a little too early. Like the NBA was not ready for a guy of his skill set. I don't totally know though, because if you're a big guy who really could make shots and do all that, I feel like you'd still find a way. I mean, I feel like Bargnani has this reputation of being a three-point shooter, but he really wasn't. I mean, his first couple of years he was okay, but by the time he was 25, he was like below league average for the rest of his career. But I'm guessing what the Knicks believed was that they could take what they were already doing and just kind of go further in that direction with a guy like Bargnani. I mean, Steve Novak was in the move. Looking back on it now, Steve Novak was perfect for what the Knicks wanted to do there, whereas Bargnani, not really the case, even if Bargnani was perhaps, you would think, to be a more talented player, but you'd rather have the guy who just does the one thing well for 20 minutes a game than Bargnani, who does a whole bunch of stuff not that well, but you got to play him like 30 minutes a game because you're hoping he can really give you something. It's just crazy to think that you trade a first-round pick for an injury-prone guy who wasn't that good. Like, seriously, I know Bargnani averaged 21 a game in 2011, and maybe it's just because we thought about basketball a little differently, but like, you look at his stat line, it's not good. Like, his efficiency is bad. He's a center and his rebounding sucks. I mean, when Bargnani was the starting center, the Raptors were 30th in defensive rating. Like, if the only thing you looked at was the 21 points a game, you might be like, oh, this guy's pretty good. But if you dove into anything else, it all suggested Bargnani does not help you win basketball games. And so then it's like, again, why did the Knicks make the move? I really don't know. Did they think that they were getting some stretch five to fit in with the shooting that they already had going on? Because again, he really wasn't that great of a shooter. I mean, maybe from mid-range, but the Knicks team the year before, the reason they were good was because of threes. It wasn't because of shooting long two-pointers. But again, whether it's the people running the show not knowing what they're doing, or just they were like 5 years too early on really understanding the value of threes. I mean, they basically just fell into playing that way because of Stoudemire's injury and stuff. And, I guess the Knicks they must have really believed that they were just going to be good that far out. I mean, you're talking however many years. I mean, you make a move in the off-season before the 2014 years. This all gets really confusing when you start looking at the numbers. And then they trade a 2016 pick. So they must have just been like, oh, we just won 50-something games. We're going to be good. We're going to be fine. That pick's not going to mean much. And it, of course, ended up being what it was. And again, like, the pick itself is Jakob Poeltl, which you're not kicking yourself over for losing him, although I think he's underrated, and I think he could be one of the best rim protectors if you gave him more minutes and stuff. But they could have done something else with that pick. I mentioned Sabonis before. They could have traded it for something else. This is why you put protections on draft picks, pretty much, I guess if we want to picture how it could have gone well, I mean, if we look at the 2014 Knicks starting five, Melo, Raymond Felton, Tyson Chandler, Bargnani, Iman Shumpert. I mean, if Bargnani was just basically a better version of Steve Novak, where he was making threes and going off the dribble and posting up on guys occasionally, it could have been cool. But again, they didn't know who they were trading for. They were trading for an injury-prone guy who you thought could be something, and then when you actually had him on your team, it's like, oh, defensively he's not good, rebounding-wise he's not good. I mean, they moved him to power forward, so that's like at least not horrible. At least when he would be playing next to Chandler. Yeah, that's about all I got. The Bargnani move, not ideal. One way to put it.